What we are watching right now is a dangerous three-way collision, one where American military power, Iranian domestic turmoil, and a suddenly more cautious Gulf are all moving at once, but not in the same direction. On the surface, the United States looks as assertive as it has been in years. A large carrier strike group has been pushed toward waters near Iran, backed by additional air and missile defense assets that signal readiness, deterrence, and the capacity to act quickly if a crisis erupts. This posture is not abstract. It comes after weeks of brutal internal unrest inside Iran, where economic pressure ignited nationwide protests, and the state responded with overwhelming force. Thousands are reported dead, and the regime is still visibly nervous about its grip on power. When a government feels cornered at home, it tends to see foreign threats everywhere, and that is when miscalculation becomes most likely. But the second force in this collision is more subtle and arguably more destabilizing. The traditional U.S. security architecture in the Gulf is no longer automatic. Saudi Arabia has drawn a clear line, telling Tehran that its territory, airspace, and waters will not be used as a staging ground for any attack. The United Arab Emirates has echoed that stance almost word for word, publicly ruling out logistical support or operational involvement. This is not a symbolic gesture. It fundamentally alters how any military campaign would have to be conducted. Without Gulf bases as launch pads, Washington is forced to rely far more heavily on sea-based assets and long-range capabilities. That raises costs, compresses decision timelines, and increases reliance on standoff weapons, cyber operations, and covert action. It also reveals a deeper shift in Gulf thinking. For monarchies that once saw alignment with U.S. military action as a guarantee of protection, the lesson of recent decades has been harsh. Regional blowback, domestic vulnerability, and economic transformation plans have made being a launch pad for war look less like insurance and more like a liability. Markets are already sensing this tension, even if they are not fully pricing it. Oil has crept higher, but only modestly, with a relatively small risk premium embedded so far. That calm is deceptive. Beneath it lies the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow choke point through which a fifth of the world's petroleum liquids and a major share of global LNG still flow. The real nightmare is not a limited strike, but a retaliatory spiral that disrupts shipping there, even briefly. History shows how fast sentiment can flip. From the tanker wars of the 1980s to more recent US to Iran confrontations, markets can gap violently on Middle East shocks, long before policymakers regain control of events. Today's combination is especially unstable. A forward-leaning American military posture, a regime in Tehran that feels existentially threatened, and Gulf allies who are drawing bright red lines around their own involvement. That leaves far less margin for error than current prices suggest, and far more room for a crisis to outrun the intentions of everyone involved.